Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
We remember to thank our Creator for all that we are and all that we have. Please help to guide us through the tough decisions we have to make this evening. Amen.
Amen. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the adoption of this evening's agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your chance to talk.
I'm Karen Seifert. I'm a judge in Circuit Court Branch 4, and I am also the chair of the Winnebago County Courthouse Security Committee. And on September 13th, 2011, a gunman entered the Crawford County Courthouse in Little Rock, Arkansas, unopposed, while wearing tactical gear and armed with 3 semi-automatic weapons. An employee was shot in the leg before the man was shot dead by officers. The article describing this event ends with this. On Wednesday, officials said the courthouse, which had 6 entrances before the shooting, would only have 1 from now on. Other security measures are being examined as the investigation continues, officials said. On December 15, 2011, in the Cook County Courthouse in Grand Marais, Minnesota, a criminal defendant was found guilty after a trial and began shooting. He wounded 3, including the prosecutor. And I'm quoting the last line of the online article reporting the incident. Since the incident, the Cook County Courthouse has taken significant steps to make the facility safer. On March 9, 2012, in Grays Harbor County Courthouse in Montesano, Washington, a man stabbed a judge and shot a sheriff's deputy. According to the article, the courthouse is not equipped with a metal detector. The undersheriff is quoted as saying, "We just had a discussion about courthouse security less than a week ago." The need for that is certainly illustrated by situations like this. A court security resources guide was published in June of 2013 by the National Center for State Courts. It opens with this statement. Because courthouses must be accessible and in centralized locations, they are vulnerable to acts of random violence. Courts must have proper security procedures, technology, personnel, and architectural features to not only protect the safety of the people and the property within and around the courts, but also the integrity of the judicial process. We in Winnebago County are in the enviable position that we have not had a tragedy occur that we must respond to. We can be proactive in making our courthouse safe and secure for everyone. And I ask you to support the last resolution on your agenda, which is for the courthouse security checkpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your chance to talk.
Good evening, I'm Judge Scott Wald. Instead of making a comment, mine is more of an invitation. If any of you think it's okay not to vote in favor of a security checkpoint and you're going to vote no against that tonight, I invite you to contact my office and come sit on a bench with me. I have people sit on the bench with me all the time. Come up on the bench, sit with me, and you'll see what it's like. And then you'll get an understanding of why it's very imperative that you vote in favor of the security measures. That's your last vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your chance to talk.
Hi, I'm Linda Meyer. I am the local attorney manager for the Public Defender's Office, and we're representing the defendants that are in court. And obviously, we never know what's going to happen, but I'm here on behalf of me as a member of the public to encourage you to vote in favor of the security resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening?
My name is John Birmingham. I am also a member of the County Courthouse Security Committee. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing in this courthouse daily and sometimes many times a day for the past 38 years. I also have the opportunity to travel around the state in my practice, and I have to tell you that we have no security in this courthouse from a keep a guns out standpoint. The security committee has been working for years and years and years. We've taken every single solitary step in terms of training of personnel, in terms of active shooter training. The sheriff has done a wonderful job with that. But on behalf of the huge group of lawyers who use this building every day, I believe that we deserve to have the courthouse security as high as possible. I recognize that someone who is intent on causing harm probably is going to be able to, but the deterrent that would be available from gun screening at the door would be a great sense of security, not only to the court and the court personnel, but to those of us who are here on a daily basis. And as such, I strongly urge you to vote in favor of the resolution that's before you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your chance to talk. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Okay, that portion of the meeting will be closed. Communications and petitions from the clerk.
We have a notice of claim from Crosby Heavy Duty Wrecker Service for damage to a mirror on a truck caused by a Winnebago County snowplow, referred to the Personnel and Finance Committee. Another notice of claim from Alternative Claims Management for Hertz. It's also regarding damage to a vehicle, referred to Personnel and Finance. Outagamie County's Board of Supervisors passed a resolution, and they've shared it with you, and they are asking for the legislature to prohibit certain, with some exceptions, the manufacture of personal care products containing microbeads. We'll refer that to the Legislative Committee. There's a petition for zoning amendment from Lester and Patricia Davey in the town of Poygan requesting a zoning change from R1 B2 to R1 for residential purposes, referred to Planning and Zoning. A petition for zoning amendment from John S. Pujols, the town of Neenah, requesting a zoning change from I1 to B2 or B3 for a healthcare clinic, also referred to Planning and Zoning. And that's all.
Okay. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spent 3 days at a state convention at Paper Valley and Appleton on conservation. There were many interesting sessions, but being on the Menasha Park Board, I found the sessions on Emerald Ash Borer the most interesting. I have a friend in Neenah who has been upset about the number of ash trees coming down in the parks. For a beetle as small as the ash beetle is, it certainly can do an enormous amount of destruction. When you see damage, there really isn't any long-term help for the trees, so the best is to cut it down, as within a year it will die anyway. There is another disease spreading called 100 canker disease. The lady from the DNR who was giving the program had just time in the end to mention it, the name, so I'm going to see what I can find out about it, because it sounds pretty difficult for us to deal with. When I came on the board in 1992, I requested Land and Water Conservation and Ag and Extension Committees. Joe Mail was chairman, and he told me women didn't like those committees, and he would see if he could get me on Parkview and Health Committee. They were more suitable for ladies. I told him I wanted Ag and Extension and Conservation Committees. Being a farm girl, he finally gave in, and I'm still on those committees 23 years later, so I guess it worked out all right. I received an honor as a Wisconsin Woman in Conservation and Government for the year. There were 5 of us ladies in Wisconsin Conservation, and we were told we had dedicated our careers to conservation and public service. I gave a 7-minute speech and received a beautiful bowl as a remembrance of my work. I hope to have many more years in conservation and agriculture. I have here the sheet I had for the celebrating women in conservation and our agenda, and I will pass it around, and just don't pay too much attention to the scribbling I did on it. I didn't have any other paper. But we had some pretty interesting women on there, so it was very enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended a Wisconsin Department of Transportation Appleton Road Interchange pre-closure business meeting this morning. And if anybody's interested in learning more about the approaching 75-day closure of Highway 47 between Midway and Valley Road, I know there's a few of us up in that area. I do have some brochures and also from the DOT some sheets of comment. They do take the comments into consideration, so if you have businesses in that area or are concerned about the road closure, come and see me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you give us an update on the basketball report? We watched it in Milwaukee. My wife and I were there, and all we saw was Haig makes another basket. Haig got a three-pointer. Haig this, Haig that. So I think maybe you should report to us on what happened.
Yeah, they lost. Stevens Point went on to win the sectional by 21 points over Superior, so we pretty much knew that was going to be the road to state was beating Stevens Point. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And I watched the girls last weekend. It's a great time of the year. It's probably the best time of the year in my opinion. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Show them the picture. This is what happens when you when you borrow an expensive camera and sit in the stands. A father can get a nice picture of his son shooting the game-tying three-pointer from the stands and have a piece of memorabilia for his son for the rest of his life. So, very nice.
Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a reminder to the members of the legislative committee and all members of the board that we will be meeting next Monday, the 23rd at 8:30 at the Conference Center. We have a full agenda. There seems to be some concern about the state budget and its impact on the county.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to inform the board members and the public that at the next AADRC meeting, which will take place on Monday, April 13th at 3 p.m. at the Oshkosh Community Service Building in the basement, we will, in lieu of having a normal or regular business meeting, we have invited each and every one of the legislators that represent our county to talk about 3 specific issues in the state budget affecting seniors and disability people. Those issues are senior care, family care, and ADRCs in general. If you want more information on it, I can get copies of those information sheets to you. And please inform your public, anyone you know who may be using these services. We have a commitment from State Senator Gudex, and if there are no Joint Finance Committee meetings, Representatives Hintz and Schra have committed to be there, as well as State Senator Olson, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the other 3 representatives and senators. So remember, mark down April 13th at 3 p.m. at the Oshkosh Human Services Building.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to report? Approval of... Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to draw your attention to the Winnebago County Land and Water Annual Report. It was included in your packet. I hope everyone's taken a few minutes to look at that. They did a really good job this year of demonstrating the projects that your county, our County Land and Water Conservation Department, has accomplished during the last year. As you can see, our department is responsible for, getting down and getting in the dirt and getting these projects done to help with clean water in our county. So I thank you for your report, and hopefully you've had a minute to look at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Approval of proceedings from February 10th, 2015. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. County Executives Report.
Well, first of all, happy St. Patrick's Day. And I know you have a long agenda with a lot of important items on it, but it's my custom to highlight a couple that I think deserve special attention. And the two resolutions I want to talk about briefly are Resolution 142 and Resolution 143. 142 is repair of the decking coming into the courthouse. And whether we do a security checkpoint project or not, that decking does have to be repaired to remain in a safe condition. It's showing a lot of deterioration, and there's some concrete debris falling out from the underside into the sally port below. So that would have to be done whether we did the security checkpoint or not. But the price of that project includes rebuilding it in a fashion that it can support an additional structure on top of it. And whether we expected to pass a security checkpoint tonight or not, it makes sense for us to design it to accommodate that additional weight. Because the security checkpoint is an idea that's come before the board and been talked about for probably 3 decades, if not longer. And that deck needs to be able to support that weight if any future board would want to do the security checkpoint, or you'd have to tear it down and rebuild it to accommodate that weight. So that really is an important item that needs to be done either way and should be done in a fashion that would support a security checkpoint. The next item, of course, is the security checkpoint itself. And while this may be a difficult decision for some, we are probably one of the largest Wisconsin counties that does not already have metal detectors in our courthouse. And I think we all know that the world is changing a little bit, so that there probably is a need for greater security. I don't think this checkpoint will be kind of the answer to all the security issues, but it's a very important first step in the right direction. And I think it's worthy of support. There will be other expenses related to changes at the courthouse. It is my intention to move cautiously forward with moving courthouse functions, consolidating those within the courthouse, and that would save us rent on the public safety building across the street, and then moving some functions that are currently in the courthouse but not court-related, such as the treasurer's office, into the administrative building on Otter Street. And I think that will meet our needs well, save money on rent, and will allow us to have all of our courtrooms in a single building that has an adequate level of security. So I would urge support for both Resolution 142 and Resolution 143. Now, Chuck and I discussed the status of our general fund account balance. We're at the point that we've nearly closed last year's books, and it's clear that additional funds have been closed out to the general fund, including a significant amount of money from Human Services. I know that some of the supporters of this resolution are considering an amendment to fund these resolutions out of the general fund. And I can tell you that we could fund both these resolutions out of the general fund and still be a little bit ahead of our targeted balance for that fund. So that is very doable, and I would support that amendment to the resolution as well. That's what I have for my county executive report. And I do want to tell you one other thing. I do, as you know, follow the state budget. I reported at the last meeting some of the open issues with regard to the county. And as I learn additional issues, I'll bring those to your attention in case you have contact with legislators. One of the things that was only recently noticed is that the state budget has no funds in it for court reporters. And the court reporters are traditionally paid for by the state. That was probably an oversight, but that's one thing we want to make sure that our local legislators know, that we want money put back in the budget to pay the salaries of the court reporters, which has always been a state responsibility. There's still other areas. We think we're going to lose some grant money from land and water. There's some changes in human services. Still a lot of uncertainty as to what changes are going on in family care. But I will continue to report back to you to let you know what I find out. But those are mostly the new items since last time I talked about it. And then, unless there's questions, I'll move on to appointments. And I want to introduce to you today and make my appointment for Director of the Veteran Service Office, and that's Joseph Aulick. And Joe comes to us from his experience as a Veteran Service Officer in Kewaunee County, and he was one of several well-qualified candidates to interview for that position. As you know, Bob Stone is leaving April 1st, and I'm very pleased that he has accepted our offer, subject to your approval, to be the Veteran Service Officer. And hiring of a department heads requires the board's approval of the appointment.
Move his approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Can I ask Joe to stand up in the back of the room?
Sure.
And maybe give him a minute to say hello to people if you want.
I was asking everybody who you were, nobody knew.
Not working, there we go. Thank you. My name is Joe Wallach, as Mr. Harris said, and I'm coming from Kewaunee County. I do appreciate your support, and I can assure you that I'm a very committed service officer. My fellow veterans are very important to me, and there'll be a seamless transition. I'm very honored to take over for Mr. Stone, one of the longest serving CVSOs, and we kind of joke, I got to make the joke, I was 13 years old when he started, so... But he's a great act to follow, and again, I'll commit myself to the veterans of this county, just as I did in Kewaunee, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also have a number of reappointments to the AVCAP Board of Directors. The reappointments are Susan Locke, Mike Norton, Tom Widener, Larry Lautenschlager, and Kobe Skellinger.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I've got a number of reappointments to the Affirmative Action Commission. The reappointments are David Albrecht, Nancy Barker, Linda Mingus, and Joaquin Lira.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have an appointment to the Industrial Development Board. I would like to recommend that George Shirk, one of our newest board members, be appointed to fill that slot.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And I've got two reappointments to the Solid Waste Board, Pat O'Brien and Paul Eisen.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Ramos had called and said that he would probably be late for today's meeting. Supervisor Lautenschläger had asked to be excused, and so did Supervisor Turner. I wanted to report that Supervisor Robel was recognized for his service for the dedication of a new city garage. Well, Kenny worked for years ago for the Department of Public Works in the city of Oshkosh, so they recognized him and had a picture of him in the paper and everything else, so it was quite an honor, Ken, so we're proud of you. And then I have no report on the iPads or what we're doing. They were going to meet last night, but they didn't have a quorum. But Supervisor Keller, I had asked to help work on that, on educating people, so he'll be putting something together when and if we ever get this thing off the ground. And that's all that I have. And now I'd like to have Robert Stone come up. He's going to give us a message.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to address you one last time. As the sun goes down on my stay in Winnebago County and the shadows lengthen, it forces me to consider the events. When I look back on my life, it appears much like a marathon or an athletic event, although I'm not very athletic. When considering the events, my last report to the board, I think about it makes me a little bit nervous. So I first of all decided I've got to tell them something provocative. Well, I used to tell my children, my kids, that I could run faster scared than they could mad. Well, a few years ago I had to quit doing that because they were catching me anyway. I'm come to the consideration of the definition of the word success. I come up with two conclusions. One of them has to do with, as you glance back over your shoulder, do the memories that you come to mind cause you to smile? As I think of Winnebago County and the support that I've received from everyone in this room and those outside of this room, to include the veterans community, community workers, and just the support system, there's a soft spot in my heart for that. When you, the other definition is when you figure out what you're really good at and what you really, really like, if you can convince somebody to pay you for that. And I don't know how good I was at the CVSO, but I actually received a fair amount of compliments, and I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for that. Some people like statistics. I'll just bore you here for a couple of minutes. I worked approximately 1,901 days. During that period of time, we created 3,370 records, and that equates to 1.77 brand new cases every day. We had a brand new case walk in our office, and we generated an application or a file for them every single day. Forms generated. Forms are our life, and although we're becoming much, much more electronic now in nature than we used to be, we generated 25,208 forms during that period of time, 13.26 per day. It's a lot of stuff. Annual benefits, and I really like to brag about this, although I'd like to take all the credit, I can't, but this is what happened in Winnebago County during my tenure here. In 2007, Winnebago enjoyed $25,744,000 in benefits to the economy. In 2013, that number was $51,725,000, 106% increase. Services that have been added to the county since my arrival include counseling services to veterans, combat veterans provided by the Vet Center, the emergency housing services provided by the Center for Veterans Issues, and long-term housing for the homeless provided for the Veterans Assistance Program. In leaving, I'd like to share a couple of stories with you. Mary comes into my office, very impoverished, very poor, afflicted with the disabilities of aging. And after speaking with her for a while, we did some applications for her. And over the course of time, when the case was finally adjudicated, she got a check for $218,000. At the exit interview, I asked her, I says, Mary, why did you come and see me now? She said, my sister told me I should come and see you. I'm happy to announce that many people in this room actually carried my card, and I think that the outreach that we made through that effort yielded many, many-fold. Bill, veteran, last March, not a year ago, comes into the office to talk about how he's going to dovetail his Medicare. He's getting ready to retire. He wants to dovetail his Medicare with the VA healthcare program. Chatted with him for a little bit, found out that he was a Vietnam veteran. He got a check for $117,500 as a result of his visit to our office to figure out how his Medicare was going to work for him. Very, very exciting event. With that, I want to thank Mark Harris and the board for taking a chance on me, an old guy. I was 13 once, too. Joe, that was a long time ago. Okay, I want to thank all of the elected officials and appointed and all of those that have had any, even casual contacts with us. I'd like to invite you, one and all, on a personal basis. On March 28th, we're going to have a going-away party at the Coughlin Center at 12 o'clock. Any luck at all, we'll have a little something to eat for you there. At 1 o'clock, we're planning a little going-away party. They're talking something about roast, and I'm not sure that has to do with the beef, but I'd like to see you over there anyway. On April 1st, those people from within the county or any of those that would just like to stop by the office, maybe have never visited the county service office, we have a little open house, a little closing session on April 1st. That'll be my last day as I turn the lights off. As the day fades into night, on my voyage as Winnebago County Veteran Service Officer, I'm reminded of the World War I veterans, my friends. Yes, I am. And no, I didn't misspeak. World War Iers were close to my heart, and they shall always be. And I'd like to share with you, they closed every one of their sessions with this poem. We shall not sleep. In Flanders field the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amidst the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Thank you.
I forgot to turn the page on my notes for my report. I just wanted to report that Parkview Health Center was a 5-star nursing home again. I mean, it's always been a 5-star reported nursing home, so I'd like to thank Morgan Hinckley for the fine job she's done of maintaining that at our county nursing home. That goes like this: the nursing home 5-star report recently underwent changes to its scoring system. It would not be appropriate to compare ratings going forward to ratings prior to February. Parkview remains at 5 stars overall, but due to the type of conditions Parkview cares for, they are more vulnerable to be negatively impacted by these changes. The care they provide is unchanged and is top-notch. So we would like to thank you, Morgan. Okay, Supervisor Hamlin has an award coming for serving on the board, but he couldn't make it this evening. So the Highway Department has one for him, and so do I, so I'll read mine, and then I'll ask Ernie Winters to come up and present his. I think it's on Okay, this is for Tim Hamlin, who resigned from our board. And it's in recognitions of your years of service of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Tim Hamlin, Winnebago County Supervisor, District Number 10, April 17th, 2007, December 31st of 2014. Presented by the Winnebago County Board Supervisors. So we'll see that he gets this, and we wish he could have been here to accept this. And Ernie Winters from the Highway Department has one for him also. So Ernie, would you come up and would you see that he gets this?
Evening, everybody. The Highway Committee and I thought it was appropriate to write Tim a thank you letter, so I'll read that. Dear Tim, on behalf of the Winnebago County Highway Committee and County Highway Department, we want to thank you sincerely for your 7 years of membership on the committee and your hard work and efforts in supporting highways and transportation in our county. A number of important projects were built and critical decisions were made under your tenure and guidance while on the committee. Your career experience as a public works professional proved very valuable to the committee process and to the department overall. While all county departments are unique in their own way, the Highway Department has a broad range of responsibilities and customers, not the least of which is every resident of the county and the Wisconsin DOT. Having committee members with an understanding of the mission of the department and the needs of the public and DOT was a great benefit during the years that you served. Thank you very much for your commitment and years of service to the county, on the county board, and on the county highway committee. And all the highway committee members and I signed it. And this will be given to Tim.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mike Elder, the Director of the Facilities and Property Management, and Kimberly Miller from UW Extension, horticulture educator, and they'll give us a talk on emerald ash borer.
Good evening. Once again, I'm Mike Elder, and with me tonight's Kimberly Miller, and we're going to talk to you on a little bit more than just the emerald ash borer, too. About 2 years ago, we noticed that we were getting a lot more work related with trees and our urban forest on the county grounds. So I've had a supervisor that's pretty much taken one of his collateral duties to become our keeper of the trees. He's in the back, Isaiah Tate. He's becoming our urban forester for the department. So about 2 years ago, we got acquainted with Kimberly out at UW Extension, and she started teaching us that trees are just like pets. You need to care for them, you need to nurture them, and if you do what's right by them, they'll do what's right by you. And I was one of these people that always thought you plant a tree and it's good for 40, 50, 60 years and you never have to do anything with it. And like I said, about 2 years ago, we started noticing that there was a lot of dieback in the trees, there was a lot of storm damage, and we were coming up with having to come up out of our budget with a number of projects that we hadn't really planned on for taking down trees. We never really had a plan on what to do with the trees or how to replace the trees that we had to actually take down. So that led us to Kimberly. We started working with her. We started working with the DNR, and we found out that there's actually an urban forestry movement going on. So last year, about this time, we made an application for what's called an urban forestry grant. And the results of that grant are pretty much what we're going to share with you tonight. We managed to get a 50% share basis type grant with the DNR to help us take a look at our urban forestry and come up with a management plan, identify trees, the status of their health, prioritize which trees need to come down, and to develop a plan for how to mitigate the effects of the emerald ash borer. So tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly to do a little bit of a presentation on what our tree survey and what our management plan has actually come up with. She's done a lion's share of it. Isaiah's done a ton of work trying to get this for us. So, I'm just the mouthpiece of the department here tonight. So if I can, I'll turn this over to Kimberly.
Good evening. I'm going to move the podium over just a little bit. It's easier. That way I can kind of see what I'm looking at here. As Mike said, I'm here tonight to present the Winnebago County Urban Forestry and Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. So the outline of tonight's presentation is to look at the history and purpose of this plan, the tree inventory and results, and then the management considerations and goals that came out of the plan. So the history is this is the first time that the county has done a complete look at all the trees on their maintained areas. So this is the first complete tree inventory that's been done. It's also the first time the county's ever written any type of comprehensive management plan dealing with the management of trees on their properties. Also, as Mike mentioned, we did receive a 2014 Urban Forestry grant to help with this project. So you may be asking, what's the purpose of this? Why do you want to go through this process of having a tree inventory? Why do you need a management plan? Well, first and foremost is to ensure that the citizens of this county get to enjoy these trees for generations to come, so that your grandkids can enjoy the same trees you did, and so forth. Also, the inventory and management plan provide many benefits. So the foundation of an urban forestry program provide many things. They provide this healthier and safer community, and this comes twofold. This is a healthier and safer tree community that you're dealing with. It's also your citizenry. There's many research out there that shows the benefits of trees and how these trees can help with the health of your citizens. It also helps reduce the safety risk and the liabilities with these trees on your property. It reduces storm damage, allows work to be executed more efficiently, and helps you to prioritize your budgets over the years. So when you're looking at an urban forestry program, the goal of any program is these three things. You want to have a diverse species distribution, you want to have a diverse age distribution, and you want to have trees that are in good condition or are healthy trees. So those are the three primary things that the tree inventory will look at. So the results of the inventory. We first came up with a total of 3,651 trees and 38 stumps. You have to remember these are only trees in maintained areas. These do not include 150 acres of natural areas that you have, 30 miles of trails, 370 miles of right-of-way, and there's also many other miscellaneous areas that did not get inventoried. So the first goal of any program is you want a diversity of trees. By having that diversity, it helps you guard yourself against any catastrophic event, such as emerald ash borer. If you have all your trees and just a handful of species, you're just asking for problems down the road. And so basically the general rule and the industry standard is not to have any more than 5% species and 10% genus. An example of this is ash. Ash is a genus, so you don't want any more than 10% of your population to be ash. As many of you have probably heard, green ash, white ash. Those are species, so therefore you don't want any more than 5% of either one of those. Within our county, these are the most overrepresented species and genera within county trees. And you can see that spruce and ash are right there at the top. Ash, many of y'all understand why that's an issue with emerald ash borer coming. You may wonder, why is it a problem with spruce? Well, blue spruce is really not the best tree for this area, and we're starting to see a lot of problems with disease on spruce trees. And so we could be opening ourselves up with problems with them. The next thing you want to look at is tree size or age distribution of your species. You want to make sure that you have a wide distribution of these so that you can look at the maintenance and the condition, and just it helps you with your budgets. So you can see over here on the right what's ideal and where the county is, and you can see that the county has a very high spike in there. for any inventory or any population, you want a high percentage of trees in that 7 to 12 inch diameter class because they help, because any trees you're going to have some dieback, some death, and so those will taper off. But we have an extremely high peak in that age group. And the problem with this is that 45% of these trees are two species. It's ash and spruce. And so we have very high possibility of losing a lot of trees within that age group. Also, you want a very low percentage of those really large trees, but you can see that the county is way down here. We don't even have enough of the old trees. And so what that's telling me is that we need better care so that we have long-term health of our trees. The third aspect you want to look at with any tree inventory is the condition. This will assess the overall health and condition of your trees. The goal should be to have no trees that are rated as poor or worse. So with our categories, we have poor, very poor, and dead. And so we have 25 trees that are dead, and we have 313 trees that are in that very poor, and our goal should be to have none in those categories. The pictures are just there to kind of indicate to you, these are some of the problems that we look for in the tree inventory. To the average person, this may mean nothing to them. But each one of these has an issue with them that are signs of more problems with that tree that an arborist would be able to see. So once you've looked at these conditions, you've looked at your inventory, you then have to come up with management considerations and where do you want to go. And the first thing you need to do is you have to eliminate all your high-risk situations. Any high-risk situations are just a liability for you. So there's 154 trees that are in need of removal. If you look at the estimated cost of this, it's approximately $84,000 to remove them and to replace them. The second priority needs to be to prune those high-risk branches. I'm sure you all have seen many trees that have dead branches at tops, they have hangers. Those are just hazards waiting to happen. They're they're just basically a risk for you. There's 84 trees that are in priority pruning stage. To estimate pruning is very difficult without a formal bid from an arborist. So I did my best, and it comes out to probably right around 8,000. Be honest, it's probably a little low. So the second aspect of any plan is first you eliminate risk, and then you want to look at how do you manage your trees long term. You need to come up with an overall strategy of dealing with this. And so it's very important to get that systematic maintenance plan in place because this helps you with safety, helps you with costs, and increase your benefits and aesthetics. It's been shown that if you can prune your trees when they're young, if you do training pruning, then 90% of your problems down the road are eliminated. And so these two diagrams are just an example of that. The tree on the left is a tree that was pruned when it was young. The tree on the right is one that was never pruned, and you're going to have a lot of structural issues with it as it gets older. So the priority recommendations are to perform yearly tree evaluations and inspections. We have several trees that are on a monitor status, so they're going to need to be looked at yearly. We need to start conducting training pruning of those trees that are 10 years or younger so that we don't have these issues further down the road. We also need to put trees that are older than 10 years on a pruning cycle so that they're looked at, they're touched probably about once every 7 years. And then also start a tree planting program. Look at where we have open places, plant trees. This will also help when emerald ash borer comes through. For this to happen, staff is going to need proper training. That's the biggest area. You're going to need that or hire an ISA certified arborist to do a lot of this work. Another aspect that the county needs to look at is the tree protection and preservation. It has been shown that protecting trees long-term has its paybacks. And we have two examples that are happening right now. One in the pictures is the Parkview oak tree. This is the logo for Parkview. It was not properly protected through construction, so you can see the tree on the left, that's how it looked. It got pruned and is going through some rehabilitation strategies right now, and this is how it looks on the left, on the right, sorry. True, it's not pretty, but it will come back. However, if it had just been protected properly from the beginning, none of this would have had to happen. So it's recommended that you incorporate tree preservation plans in all construction activities. This is not just new buildings, but it's also dealing with utilities, street projects, and so forth. So Emerald Ash Borer considerations. It's recommended that the county take a multifaceted approach to dealing with emerald ash borer. Just in your maintained areas, you have 723 ash trees. This is 19.6%. If you think back, we had a 5% diversity rule that we needed to meet, so we're way over that. So it's recommended that to get that, we should try to maintain our population at that 5% level. And that's approximately 165 to 185 trees. So it's recommended that we treat those trees, and the cost per treatment cycle is about $19,000. And then remove and replace the remaining ash trees. We can stagger that out over several years, 5, maybe even 7 years. It all depends on the status of how fast emerald ash borer moves through the county. The estimated cost for this is approximately $281,000. for a total thousand of approximately $300,000. So, in summary, you have to remember trees are the only infrastructure that increase with value over time. Any other infrastructure, gray infrastructure, as soon as you build it, it starts decreasing in value. So if you manage it, protect it, it will pay you back over time. So the immediate concerns with this plan is to reduce risk, protection of the oak trees, both at Parkview and out here in front of the courthouse, and the emerald ash borer management. And then I have a little quiz. I apologize for the picture. It was much better on my computer screen. But does anyone recognize this tree? I know it's hard with this diagram. Okay, I'll give you a hint because it is so bad. Yeah. Does anyone recognize this? What kind? Where is this oak tree?
Where is it?
Yeah.
My backyard.
Does that help? So who was first? Actually, you were. And here's a picture of those trees back when the courthouse was built. The whole point of this is if you take care of these trees, over the long term, they will be there, and they will pay us back in the many benefits that they do give us. And so that's just the point I wanted to make.
Did you have a picture of the earth tree that Winnebago County Board of Supervisors planted some years ago, and there was a plaque there and everything else?
No, I don't have a picture
I
of that.
suppose Mike had his people plow it away or something.
And,
No, it died. It died, so we had to take it out because it was a risk.
So then what happened to the plaque,
really quick, who was the first one to get it right? Okay.
I have a question. We'll be, Kimberly, Mike, we will be removing those trees at a cost. Is there any compensation from the paper industry or any lumber companies for those trees that we'll be removing?
Right now, because we're under a quarantine, we can't move them from the county.
Can't move them from the quarantine.
Well, we can't move them from the quarantine. But what we are looking at different ways that we can use it in that we can probably, we've heard about there's a mill out in the Winnebago area that might be able to mill the trees into dimensional lumber that we might be able to use for projects. You know, it'd be something I could offer to Rob and his crew out at Parks that maybe they can make benches or something out of. We might be able to make benches for it around the facility campuses around here, so that we might be able to use it that way. But with the quarantine and the transportation restrictions we've had, it's going to be kind of hard to get it to a paper company where they can actually turn it into pulpwood.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the charts you had there
said that the cost to treat the ash trees is $19,000 per cycle. How frequent is the cycle?
Those estimates were based off of using a chemical called triage, and triage is good. The label states every 2 years. However, research has shown that it's good for 3 years plus. And so basically, you would have to pay attention to what is the population of emerald ash borer. When the pest pressure is really high, you're going to want to treat every 2 to 3 years. When that pest pressure goes down, it can be staggered out. Right now, the University of Michigan is doing a lot of research on just this topic, trying to figure out how far out can you stagger those treatments and still be effective. Some of the University of Wisconsin research is showing that you can stagger it out 5-6 years and still be effective.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shirk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's your research show is the success of treatment? Because what we were told at the city of Neenah is that it's just not an effective approach, and so you might as well cut them down.
Treatments have been shown to be 99.9% effective.
Over 3 years?
If you do the treatments correctly according to the label, they are effective. It all depends on which chemical you use and how you do it as to the timing and how much. However, you have to continue treatments. This is not a one-time thing. It is for the life of the tree.
I'm going to pass it on to the city of Neenah. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. There are no more questions. Resolution number 130-32015, commendation for Pamela Youngbacher. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Move for approval for resolution number 133-2015. Pam Youngbauer started her career with Parkview at a young age. She volunteered to help out Parkview even before she was hired as a food service worker, officially starting as an employee on December 16, 1972, more than 42 years ago. Pam remained loyal and dedicated to serving those in need of skilled nursing services for the next 43 years. Throughout those years as a food service worker, she saw many changes and evolutions in the operation of the Food and Nutrition Services Department and Parkview as a whole. Her commitment is commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude for Pam's years of service and best wishes for her future in retirement.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 130-2015, disallow claim of George Wilcox. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Move for approval of resolution number 131-2015.
Then moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 132-2015, designate the week of March 23rd to 27th of 2015 as Work Zone Awareness Week in Winnebago County. Supervisor Skellinger?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'd like to speak to it after.
Okay. Supervisor Robel?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of resolution 132-32015.
Then moved and seconded. Supervisor Skellinger.
Is this just a, just the board saying it's work zone awareness, or is there any meat behind this?
The Highway Commissioner will, we've had several people from the county involved in fatalities and things like that, so that's where it's coming from.
This is an annual campaign that's done by the Federal Highway Administration, and then the Governor Walker and previous governors have usually designated a week in March or April as Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. We do a little public campaign. I try to get as much media coverage as I can. I handed out a little press release to everybody's seat earlier this evening. We did lose 2 workers back in '06.
on 41, and I lost a worker when I was in Fond du Lac County in '03. So work zone safety is very important, and we look for good publicity and public education on this whenever we can get it. I will continue to work on this after the board hopefully passes this resolution, and we use that as part of the educational campaign.
Thank you. I agree that this is a big issue, and would like to see, maybe it's too late this year, but next year, if this when this comes back, that there be some money attached to it to help with the promotion and really make it something that the public can be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 133, 2015, authorize the Winnebago County Parks Department to apply for a grant to develop a universal design playground and outdoor fitness complex valued at up to $500,000 to replace outdated playground equipment at Shelter 2 in the Winnebago County Community Park. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for 133-32015. Any questions? Rob's in the back to answer for you. Thank you.
Okay, Rob, you want to tell us what it's about? That somebody gave you all this the way you told the personnel and finance?
Test? Okay. As the resolution indicates, it's a fairly major project that we're involving a grant from Game Time, a large playground manufacturer based out of Minneapolis. What we're looking to do is actually put as a standard or a demo site for them for this universal design. And what universal design is kind of the next phase in making playgrounds adaptable to all disabled populations. In the past, playgrounds were mainly designed kind of in a one-dimensional manner for disability as far as mobility impaired. And by that I mean mainly for handicap access, be a wheelchair and so forth. And they were also, the apparatus that were put in were one-dimensional. That came into being in the early 90s. This is kind of the next phase of doing what is already in place in Europe, in that we're trying to bring other populations into play with the playgrounds, the vision impaired, hearing impaired, and so forth. So these new apparatus kind of are inclusive of all populations, trying to draw all populations together in this setting. So this is a major complex that it'll have various pods with these apparatus built into them. It'll occupy the area to the west of shelter number 2. There's a large open space back there. And what's prompting this again is that grant that's available. We've actually had some encouragement from the company. They've called us several times. You usually don't get that. These are usually grants that are shots in the dark, so we're hoping for some success on this one.
Thank you. Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just kind of curious of what kind of equipment we're going to put in there. You know, $500,000 seems like a lot of money, and I just wonder what kind of, I mean, we talked about apparatus. What kind of apparatus might we have?
It's the quantity. Again, this is a major project, and I speak of modules or pods. I think we have them out at 6 pods where there's some fairly major pieces of equipment, not just swing sets. Certainly they'll be in there, but there's some of this equipment, in order to be adaptable to these cross populations, are fairly involved. They're no longer the simple swing set or the teeter-totter and so forth. It's a major undertaking to not only develop them but to install them, and that's where a lot of the cost comes into play. And another factor that comes into play with this is that you can no longer just go with bare ground or sand for the surfacing. It now requires a special surfacing for the attenuation factor. So this also covers the surfacing, the special surfacing that needs to go down.
Can you give me an example of some of that, some of the pods or apparatus?
One of the devices would include a apparatus where you actually, I'm trying to compare it to kind of a carnival ride that's open, where you would actually have a wheelchair wheel up on it, and you would also have seats available around it to then get into a rocking motion. You have other people involved that actually rock it. So the size of it can be as big as 5 by 10. You also have the rock wall, the standard rock walls. I think you've seen them at playgrounds as well. And that has also some vision impaired elements, some touch and feel elements that are incorporated into the wall.
Okay, just have one more comment. Most of the people that have trouble hearing are not hearing impaired. They're deaf and hard of hearing. It's more the preferred terminology.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, if we're unable to secure the $500,000 for this demonstration playground, how much and what would you be coming back to the board for in its place?
Well, first off, the $500,000 is the top end of what this company would be donating in equipment. So it does not involve a funding of it, but an actual supply of that equipment with their resources to put it in. Now, again, I say any grant like this is a shot in the dark, so if we get it, we'll be very fortunate, but if we don't get it, yes, we'll be removing the equipment that is presently at that playground. Again, I pointed out in the resolution that it is antiquated, inadequate, and we'd be looking to put a new, some type of modular set in there using next year's funding, parks funding.
Approximately what investment would it take to...
A modest modular set might be upwards of between 10 and 15, not including the surfacing. 10 and 15,000.
15. Thank you.
Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, we have a fiscal impact statement from the finance director. In there, it indicates you're going to have reoccurring operating costs of about $1,000. That says that it's for labor and Parks Department budget increase, which is, kind of nominal, I think, really. But perhaps the larger question would be, how will this impact the county in regard to liability if it were put in, based on your demonstration? What additional liability would we incur, and at what cost would that have?
Well, this type of facility is covered under the recreational immunity the state offers with that regard, and so playgrounds, recreational settings like this are typically covered, and that I know of, I've never heard of, at least within our county, the liability, the premium going up because of a playground accident or anything. So I think that's common within the state. We have that special protection.
Thank you.
Supervisor Warnke.
Rob, I'm all for grants. I like grants. But I was wondering, why are you coming to the board for this? Why wouldn't you just apply for it, and if you were granted some money or something, then bring it to the board for their approval?
I would enjoy doing that, but it's part of your ordinance that requests for grants come before the county board.
Right,
Applications, actually.
We have an ordinance that says you have to do that, bring it to the board.
Okay.
Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, if I heard you correctly, excuse me, you said that the grant would be coming from the manufacturer of the playground equipment itself. This, of course, implies that we will use their equipment. Is that something that perhaps they will use in advertising their product or whatever? I'm all in favor of taking it, but I'm just kind of wondering if it entails even more publicity for us if they use it for advertising their product.
You can count on that. I think that's part of the conditions that we would be getting into if this were to take place. They would use it in the national magazine, certainly, because it's seen as a national demo site.
Okay. It was moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Pardon? For what we need? Okay, we got to vote by... Huh? I mean, it was unanimous. But I mean, there's three people missing.
I think we're okay. We've got 30...
33.
We have 32 here. We're okay. I mean, if you're okay, but I've reset it already.
Resolution number 134, 3/2015, opposed reduction of recycling grant funding and elimination of the Solid and Hazardous Waste Education Center and UW System Solid Waste Research Program funding. I don't remember who's the vice chair of the... Supervisor Rubel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of Resolution 134-32015.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 135, 3/2015, authorize the Emergency Management Department to accept $6,500,000 Department of Homeland Security grant to carry out a state inoperable mobile communication exercise and appropriate the funds for that purpose. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 135-3015.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Unanimous. Resolution number 136, 3/2015, authorize the Sheriff's Department to accept the donation valued at $17,500 for the purchase of an additional K-9 unit, equipment, and training for the unit from Thomas and Penny Herrenberg. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of Resolution 136-3/2015.
Been moved and seconded.
I'd like to commend Thomas and Penny Herrenberg for this very generous donation. This will allow the Sheriff Department to have 3 dogs, one for each of the shifts. And just this last week, I was aware of a burglary that occurred in town of the Kaimai, and they were able to successfully follow the burglar because of the dogs. They do great stuff, as do the Herrenbergs. They're just wonderful supporters of animal. The zoo down in Oshkosh Menominee Park has been pretty much sponsored by them over the last number of years. And in closing, I think getting this dog ties into what Mike Elder said before. We won't be barking up the wrong tree.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Olson.
Can I ask why we're not using these to vote?
Why what?
Why aren't we using the...
Well, we can. I just thought it would go faster, and they've all been unanimous, so if you want to use them, if you just want to use them, then we'll We will.
Well, okay. I just was wondering.
Resolution 137-3/2015, authorize a transfer of $150,000 from the Parkview Health Center's undesignated fund balance account to the building improvements account for the necessary repairs as a result of a recent federal life safety study survey. Supervisor Ellis.
Thank you. I move for the approval of 137-32015. Morgan Hinckley's in the back, if there's any question on this.
Okay. Supervisor Smith.
Yes, I'm just wondering what the violations were, or what the improvement has to be for.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Many of the violations actually had to do with fire safety that were present since we occupied the building. So they're not necessarily new issues, but issues that had been previously unfounded.
Thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was the same questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve. No if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution number 138-3/2015, authorize Parkview Health Center to increase its operating expense account by $60,000 to cover several expense budget overruns and fund the overages with excess revenues collected during 2014. Supervisor Ellis.
I move for the approval of 138-32015.
It's been moved and seconded. No other discussion, we'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve. No if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution number 139-3/2015, appropriate $3,800,000 for the 2015 annual milling and resurfacing program for Winnebago County Highway Department. Supervisor Rubel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for Resolution 139-32015.
Been moved and seconded.
If anyone has any questions, Mr. Winters is in the back of the room.
See, but we have to quit doing that because if us as chairmans don't know what's going on and don't know what the department heads are doing, then we shouldn't be voting on it.
Yeah.
Just a little, I wasn't going to say that before to somebody else, but Supervisor Widener.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is this typical $3.8 million each year for the milling? It is? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll vote by our little iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution 143-2015, appropriate $30,000 to continue to complete the design phase for the reconstruction of County Highway I from Ripple Road to Oshkosh city limits. Supervisor Robel.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for the adoption of Resolution 140-32015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 141, 3/2015, authorized transfer of $10,000 from the regular pay account of the Facilities and Property Management Department to registration and tuition account of the Facilities Department for the purpose of obtaining certain certificates needed within the department. Supervisor Wingren.
Okay, I move approval of Resolution 141-32015.
Moved and seconded.
Yes, it was.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now we'll slow down. Resolution 1423-2015, authorize the appropriation of $865,052 for design and repair of the plaza deck at the Winnebago County Courthouse. Supervisor Wingren. Or no, Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 142-32015.
Then moved and seconded.
If I may, for just a moment. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't know who wrote the resolution, but for the second time, I'll publicly say it's one of the better resolutions I've ever read. It tells it exactly like it is. This building was built in 1938. It's been exposed to the elements. It's deteriorated. It's causing damage to the courthouse building itself. The courthouse is listed on the National Registry of Historical Buildings, and the deterioration will continue and cause additional damage and increase eventual repair cost if we don't do this. It is in the 5-year capital improvements plan and has been, and I urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to amend this resolution to pay for it out of fund balance, if that's appropriate terminology. Thank you.
Then moved and seconded. Supervisor Widener on the amendment. Supervisor Smith on the amendment. Supervisor Eisen on the amendment.
Does this change the formula for approval? It's 3/4 required for approval of borrowing money. Is it now 2/3?
Yes.
Now, are you calling for a 2/3 majority for this amendment, or is it a 3/4? Okay, just a majority for the amendment, but then when the amended resolution is presented, you'll be asking for a 2/3 majority for passage.
Correct.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hardy on the amendment.
Yes, can I ask what the balance?
Yes, can I ask what the balance of our undesignated fund balance is?
Roughly 16 down there.
And the goal for the target for a rainy day? 13? Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote for our little iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove.
On the amendment?
On the amendment. That is passed. Now on the amended amendment. Seeing there's no light, Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to state that I've been on the board 23 years, and I'm Bergen, of course, but the most important thing is these people have been asking this for 20 of the 23 years. And if you go back many moons ago, we didn't have the problems outside we have today. And I feel that it's our moral obligation to protect everybody in this courthouse. And rather cost an extra buck or two, it's well worse than a human life. So I urge all my fellow supervisors to vote yes. Thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. I see the committee vote was 4-1. I'd be interested in what the person that voted against it just has to say.
I was.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I was.
What's that?
Well, he wanted to know who voted against it, and I said I did. But I'm going to support it now.
No, you didn't vote against this.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I did. I voted against both of them.
No. I was there.
So was I, and I can tell you who voted no. It was the chairman and...
You're on the wrong resolution.
Yeah, there's only
I was too, David, so you're on the wrong resolution.
Sorry.
Pardon? Okay, Mr. Furry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Windman, I want to turn you on. Mr. Wingren voted against that, and then after he had voted, he asked me to move to reconsider, which I did on his behalf because he had made a mistake. The body decided not to reconsider, that's why it's on the document. So he simply made a mistake and was not allowed to correct it. That's how it went.
I support this.
Supervisor Smith.
Vote 5-zip then?
Supervisor, what, no?
Is this a vote 5-zip as opposed to 4-1?
I didn't hear you, what?
Is a vote 5-zip as opposed to 4-1?
Well, correctly stated as 4-1, because there was no reconsideration.
Supervisor Smith, were you on the amendment? I mean, on the...
Resolution.
You had your
Okay.
thing on and off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get something clarified. If we authorize the appropriation of the 865,000 plus thousand, and then we authorize to approve the addition, would that be rolled into the addition?
That would be all one then, yes. Mr. Elder, would you help him out?
Hey, make sure of that.
Would be done concurrently, but I would end up having to meet with Chuck to exactly see how we would do the financing, where we'd bill things. If they have to be two separate projects, then it'd be an accounting practice, or accounting challenge.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Fari's explanation of what happened is correct. I will further explain that Supervisor Wingren was sitting next to Supervisor Fari, and Supervisor Wingren asked Supervisor Fari to bring it back because he was on the prevailing side. The rest of the committee had no idea what was going on. There wasn't a second, so it died because of a second. If we had known that Supervisor Wingren made a mistake and wanted to vote yes, we would have obviously allowed him to do so. Thank you.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In committee there, we talked also about if these, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but these two projects, if they're combined, you might have some money savings, correct, Mike?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve. No, they changed the funding. They changed the funding. Huh? 27. That is passed. Resolution number 143-32015, approve addition to the Welcome Center to the Winnebago County Courthouse to meet the standards for security determined by the Wisconsin Supreme Court for a total cost of $1,111,878. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of this resolution, and I ask permission to come forward and speak.
Second.
Okay, come forward and speak.
Does Mr. Hague want to amend anything here? Bear with me. Please. I've never done this before, but it's on or off? Okay. I've never done this before, but I've been on the board since 1998, and I've never felt as strongly about something as I do this resolution. So I'm going to put my name on the line here and give it all I got. It's an honor, obviously, to be on the board, to serve with each of you. I want to look right in your eye and speak from my heart and tell you what I think. We've seen slide presentations, all kinds of presentations about this project, both at the board level, the committee level, and tonight is a time we're at a crossroads. We're at a fork in the road. Remember what Yogi Berra said about when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Well, the fork that leads to the approval of this resolution solves a problem of security in this county, which is in vital need of that, in my opinion. So tonight, I'm asking you to approve the process, and that's what it is, to design and construct a secure entrance to our courthouse. This isn't easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. Is this a perfect plan? Nothing ever is. There's going to be tweaks. There's going to be modifications as we go along. I'm sure of that. The whole thing to me is sort of like the story, The Christmas Carol. We got the ghosts of the Christmas past, present, and future. If you look at the past, for me the story begins in 1998 when I was elected to the board and was appointed to the Judiciary Committee. That committee was talking about this back then. There were multiple studies, I think 20 years. You can have a stack of studies over here. But the state statute is the thing we have to key on. It says, and I'm going to quote, "A court facility should have a single entrance with appropriate screening mechanisms." We don't have any of that. But the amazing thing I found out in the last few days, people think we do. It's amazing. When I'm talking about this particular issue, you mean you don't have that already? I was absolutely blown away when I realized that the people thought we already do. And like Mr. Rowe said about the previous thing, this has been in the capital plan for lots of years. We've tried screening in the past. We proposed a welcome center in 2000, but there was not enough support. And again, I'll look you in the eye and tell you the truth. I didn't support it back then for lots of reasons. It was not, the process I thought was not open, and all the options were not looked at. They are now. We experimented with screening. Some of you here remember that. That didn't last because it was in March and the line extended out the door and it was cold. So the main issue that remains then and now is, how do we secure the courthouse? How do we do that? And the thing is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'm talking about the present, though. We've learned a lot in the last 15 years. As someone said earlier, our world has become more dangerous. The people who we represent, deserve our best effort. They deserve nothing less. The process we have used has been thorough, it's been comprehensive, and I think you and I agree that government needs to be open, honest, and accountable. And this process has been. Where are we now? Resolution 143, which I urge all of you to support. Again, I'm not going to tell you this is cheap, nor is it easy. This is an historic building. It's a beautiful building. It costs a little more to heed the historic guidelines. But that's a good thing. This is a treasure. We should preserve our treasures. You know that the dangers that we have in the world today in public buildings are different. Keeping weapons out is something we need to do. I know you agree, because you care about our employees and our constituents who use this historic building. We've had a study and various meetings of the Courthouse Security Committee involving elected officials, citizens. They support this. I'm very proud to say that your Judiciary and Public Safety Committee gave this their unanimous support. The Facilities Committee supported it. The P&F Committee supported it. The County Executive supports it. Our esteemed Emergency Management Director supports it. Our Facilities Director supports it. And by the way, he's done a lot of work behind the scenes. He used to have a full head of hair when he started this. Now look. I support this, and I hope you do too, because the person in charge of security for this courthouse is the sheriff. He organized this process several years ago, contacted employees, visitors, department heads. He made several presentations to several committees. I have the slide presentation pretty well memorized by now. And many of you, to your credit, I really appreciate this, you've talked to him privately. You've asked questions privately, and he's given you answers. I know he has. As this project goes forward, there will be tweaks, and I can guarantee you that this is just the start. I put my trust in Sheriff Motz and other elected officials. Heck, you know, all of you know, I think this is a good point, that Sheriff Motz is trusted by the public, because just last fall, he won a huge victory in his re-election campaign. And here's the point, most surprising of all, his campaign sign did not appear in Larry Smith's car. And he won anyway. So going ahead into the future, 2 years ago, the Emergency Management Director had an active shooter exercise in one of the courtrooms. And by golly, it was scary. You used to talk about this with slideshows, but actually seeing Bernie jumping over these benches or whatever you call them, rails to get at somebody as an exercise was scary. And Judge Seifert, I believe, was the judge in that particular room. It seems to me that sometimes all of us, not just in government, we're reactionary. Like a stop sign gets put up after there's a fatality at an intersection or something. So I'm not going to resort, however, to emotional visuals and arguments designed to scare you or shame you into supporting this, because I respect you too much. But you and I do not want to wait till something bad happens. What is the price of safety? Well, we know what it is tonight. And I hate to say this, but I really believe it. We've spent money on things, in my opinion, that were less urgent. It's kind of ironic that we are meeting tonight in a courtroom. Consider this. If this county board were on trial and accused of doing our job in protecting the people who work and visit this building, would we be found guilty? What evidence would we use to find ourselves guilty? I think this resolution is very compelling in that regard. We're doing our job. Again, we're at the fork in the road. I can look you in the eye, and I can tell you from my heart that this is the right thing to do immediately. I put my name on the line for this. The constituents of my district would have an easier time to get a new supervisor than I would to get a new conscience. I give you my word, we have looked at all the options. We will continue to look at all the options, the little picky tweaks and so on. And I know that in the past, sometimes we get caught up in emotion, but I want us all to leave this room tonight united and confident that we did the right thing. Looking back years from now, you can look people in the eye and say that on March 17th, 2015, this county board done good. The summary is, we do not meet the Supreme Court guidelines. We have studied the possible solutions thoroughly. This resolution is the best option we have. It's time for action this very night. Any questions?
Well, there's all kinds of questions. I don't know if they're of you or what they're...
Well, you asked that...
Supervisor Barker, you have to punch in. Well, first of all, Supervisor Shirk.
I don't really have a question. I've been involved in government for 37 years. That's the best presentation I've ever heard in favor of something, so congratulations to you. I obviously have always felt, all the time that I've been involved, that the primary purpose of government at every level is to provide for the security of our citizens and our employees. And so I strongly will support this resolution, but it has to be the first step. I'll need to be educated a little bit here. I read that back in 2013, on June 14th, the minutes said that there was a motion to approve $250,000 for a PA system and a distress panic alarm system. Was that ever done?
No. The reason was the sheriff asked us to hold back until the study be complete, so we don't put the cameras up and then have to move them somewhere else. And we get, so that's what, yes, the Judiciary Committee did approve that, and it's in the plan. It didn't make sense, though, to get all this stuff, put it up, and then move it around.
Will it be in this plan?
Absolutely. You betcha.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The other question I have is where our facilities are, our utilities rather, is there public access? For example, venting system, and because you can stop weapons from coming through, but I just read where a student produced ricin. There's other hazardous materials that can come through, and we certainly need to prevent the public from getting access to those things that could be then distributed throughout the whole building. In the city of Neenah, for example, I'm ashamed to admit that it was just recently that we stopped by putting in a code system for our elevator and for our stairs so that people couldn't just walk down to where the venting system was. Otherwise, people could have just walked right down into the venting system and used whatever materials they wanted to infect our whole thing, our whole system.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'd love to talk to you about that privately and with Mike Elder.
I would like to know
Yes.
the answer to that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
Supervisor Eisen.
I would first like to, before I have to say addressing the issue, I should like to ask if we have suspended the rules to permit a supervisor to conduct this meeting.
Well, I think I have the right as chairman to let him come up and talk, and I'll give him that right.
Can we each have the opportunity to come up, Mr. Chairman?
I guess I'll have to let you.
I understood, Mr. Chairman, that you said that you'd like to see the committee chairs make the presentation without asking department heads. I was just
correct.
following your...
That's correct.
I was following your direction, sir.
That's correct.
I didn't understand that was a bad thing.
No.
I was trying to do
said
good.
you can talk.
Okay.
I have no objection to this informal procedure, but I think it should be recognized that we ought to suspend the rules to permit it. But even if you don't, that's okay too.
I did
because
ask permission.
I'm comfortable speaking at this time. I support a secure courthouse. Courthouse security studies go back to November of 1999. On May 29, 2012, a United States Marshals Service Court security survey and assessment described our courthouse this way: the security of any building begins at the front door. The facility in its current state does not convey a strong message that security is a primary concern. The facility's appearance is professional, but lacks an outward image of security. It went on to describe all those security issues facing a secure courthouse and how we could adopt them here. But they concluded it would be the recommendation of this report for the county to consider building a courthouse next to the county jail and sheriff's office. 1 year later, in April 2013, Sheriff Motz distributed a PowerPoint of a presentation to the Winnebago County Courthouse Security Committee considering 6 options. A, do nothing. B, single entrance with screening. C, technology upgrade. D, construct a welcome center. E, staffing to Supreme Court guidelines. And F, construct a new courthouse. At a November 12, 2014 Joint Facility and Property Management and Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting, having put on hold the technology improvements of about $250,000, Sheriff Motz presented 3 options: continue the current practice, add a welcome center, bring all courtrooms to the courthouse, and move 5 non-court departments to the Oshkosh by Gosh building to eliminate 80% of the risk. Or option 3, build a new courthouse for $40 million. At the Facilities and Property Management meeting December 2014, District Attorney Christian Gossert presented the need for further evaluation. At the Facilities and Property Management meeting January 14th, 2015, Sheriff Motz said the bottom line is that a welcome center will keep weapons out of the courthouse. And then on January 14th, at the courthouse security meeting, a courthouse security manual was distributed and approved. On March 9th, 2015, at the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting, it was disclosed that in excess of 100 employees have keys to the courthouse, and that a tunnel between the courthouse and the Orrin King building is routinely used for access to a lunchroom in the Orrin King building, as well as for district attorney passages to the courthouse. From the April 9th, 2014 courthouse security meeting, it was recorded in their minutes that the prosecutors can carry guns into the courthouse, just not into the courtrooms. My friends, it is not yet prime time for approving construction of $1 million secure entrance to the courthouse because there are questions that need to be addressed. Number 1, who also, besides the prosecutors, are permitted to bring guns into the courthouse? Number 2, how do you reconcile permission for employees to bring guns into the courthouse when we want to spend $1 million to keep weapons out of the courthouse? And number 3, why haven't county board members been informed about and given access to or given a copy of the courthouse security manual? I can support a single a secure single-entrance welcome center to the courthouse. If no one except an on-duty law enforcement officer is permitted to carry a gun into the courthouse. And 2, all courthouse traffic utilizes the secure single entrance to egress, excepting for emergency exit, prisoner transportation, and secure deliveries. When these are met, I'll support a courthouse, secure entrance.
Thank you. Supervisor Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am in full support of this. It's something that should have done a long time ago. However, I just want to address a couple of details. The cost is estimated at $1.1 million, and there's a 15% contingency of $109,000. What is that for?
Whenever we have building projects, there's also built-in contingency, because there are often unknowns, and I think in the majority of our projects, they've actually come under what we had planned for. So, but just to be sure, you know, that's what the number is there. I guess it's a standard in what do you call it, RFPs for these kinds of projects?
Yeah, we too are going to have a contingency on the airport building. The second thing I'd like to ask is the annual staffing cost of $208,184. Is that included in this?
I think not.
Okay. What is the actual cost? What does that cost entail? How many people? How many hours? Is this the start? Are you going to have to add more staff later that we're going to have to vote on next year? I just want to get a handle on all these expenses.
Okay, for that one, I'm going to defer to the sheriff.
Yes, that would include 2 part-time deputies. We can flex, we're much more flexible with part-time deputies, so we would have coverage the entire time that the courthouse is open. And it would include 2 civilian staff. Those civilian staff would actually conduct the screening. 1 deputy would be present at all times to take care of any issues that may occur. I don't want that deputy doing anything but observing what's happening and dealing with any weapons or any kind of disturbances.
Okay, so the deputies will not be doing the actual scanning, they'll just be observing?
Yes, and responding to any issues that will occur.
Okay, do you anticipate that this cost will increase in the coming years?
It would only increase by the amount of wage increase there would be, so whatever 1.5% or whatever you approve.
So we can anticipate that in the next couple of years you won't be asking for additional staff?
Correct.
Okay. The third thing I'd like to ask is, I don't remember what month that was. I know it was last year when we had the big presentation about the whole courthouse. The total cost was going to be somewhere, I believe, 11 million, was it, or something, to do all that?
Pick a number.
What?
16 to
16 to 18, okay. Okay, 15 to 18, thank you. How is this going to affect that, and where are we with that whole thing?
Okay. The answer that I really believe is true, we're talking tonight about securing this building, keeping guns out. That is a separate issue from replacing the windows, buying new carpet, all that. That has to be addressed separately to have an honest discussion.
So this wasn't really included in that first proposal, was it?
What was?
This welcome center was not included in that 15 to 18 million?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just trying to get clear.
All I know is that we've constantly said we need to deal with this issue of security without getting all this other stuff mixed in.
Okay, I just want to know if that would affect the total cost of everything else we've been talking about, so, okay, thank you.
Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what the situation is here, and what the sheriff put together for us last month, and the people that spoke in the back, so I understand the issue of the security. The problem I got is, after going through all that and thinking about that, I went into a meeting last week, and I walked into the Otter Street building, and I said hello to the receptionist, got on the elevator and walked up, and so I'm going up, got on the elevator and went up, and I'm thinking, you know, I just walked in here, and there are people in this building, and we talk about security, and the word was security that we're talking about. And then I got thinking some more about that, and I'm thinking, okay, where else do we have situations where people get excited, and we have somebody that might really cause some problem, and we got human services here in Oshkosh and in Neenah, and we have similar situations. We have situations where people are in talking about what their children, are their children going to be taken away from them? Are their children going to be put back with them? Recommendations from the caseworker and other people that work there. So I'm saying, okay, we're going to solve the security situation here at the courthouse. Are we solving the situation for security at other buildings? Should we be? I think so. So we're not sitting here looking at $1.1 million, $200,000 additional, plus the 2 deputies that are already here in the courtrooms, are still going to be here. I think, wait a minute, we shouldn't be talking about that. And we're taking what Supervisor Wingren said, we're talking about security. And remember, we're talking about security at all the buildings. So if we're going to do something about security here because we're concerned about somebody getting excited, jumping over the podiums there and attacking somebody, that could happen in other places too. And I think mostly at a human services, we have other situations where people get in emotional situations. So I have a problem with supporting this without taking a look at the fact that we're going to be coming back next year or the year after and say, gee, we've got some problems in human services, we better put in a welcome center in Oshkosh and a welcome center in Neenah so that we can screen people walking in there. Because I guarantee you, having working with the human services area, there are some very emotional people getting involved there. So I cannot support this.
Supervisor Haig.
I'm going to ask the sheriff to, since he's the expert at that.
Yeah, if I could. I understand that there are other emotional events that occur at some of our buildings. We have them occur at our agency as well.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, who's running this meeting?
Well, he's up here asking questions.
Yeah, but Supervisor Wingren is asking for somebody in the back. Is he, I agree with the fact that the chairman should be, of the committee should be doing it, but he's in effect doing the meeting here. I don't think we should be doing that.
Yeah, you actually ruled against it before. I don't want to get into that. I mean, you can't be hypocritical, is what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
And I understand what you're saying, that emotional events occur at other buildings that we have. However, when there are recommendations that are made at other buildings, but this is where it happens. This is where divorces are finalized. This is where kids are taken away. This is where lives change forever. There are homicide trials where we have a father of a 21-year-old girl, and she died. And he is there with the defendant there being sentenced with the family of the defendant, and all of that happening. That is not happening at any other place than right here in this building. There is nothing more emotional than that. And those are the types of things that can cause people to do things that they never would have thought of. And we want to stop that, having weapons come into this courthouse. We've had knives come in here, brass knuckles. We had a loaded 9mm magazine. Those are the things that we know about. We don't know about scares me.
Finish up.
Basically, I said I understand that. I recognize that. I thought you made a good presentation. I think some of the comments we've had here have been good. But I still am concerned about, you talked about, for example, I used the example of the child being taken with the care. Yes, I understand the final decision being made here. However, some of the conversations take place at the Human Services Building. And so a person can be just as emotional when the recommendation is made by the caseworker and the other people involved in the discussion is saying, we are not going to give your child back. So to sit back and say that it happens here and doesn't happen anywhere else is really not correct. But Sheriff, I understand. I know where you're coming from, and I appreciate that. I'm just saying, maybe we should be looking at doing the same thing at other places.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my first comment would be to vote against this resolution for the sake of wanting security at other buildings or in lieu of. It seems nonsensical to me, but my amendment here would be, again, to pay for this resolution through fund balance. Combining these two, this resolution and the previous resolution, paying for them out of fund balance, I believe saves in the neighborhood of $240,000 over 10 years, so I think it's the smart thing to do.
Been moved and seconded. Okay, I have many lights on. Are they all on the Supervisor Finch on the amendment?
I could speak on the amendment too, yeah. I don't have a problem with what he just mentioned as far as the fund balance like we did with the other one. I just want to state, Supervisor Ringer and myself, you did a super job on your presentation. You really surprised me tonight. Also, see, I took a shot at you the way you took a shot at him. Also, I have to apologize, I got my resolutions mixed up. I hope you all realize that. Tom, you're laughing, but anyway, my point is this. Everyone has their own concerns for different values of life, but you have to start somewhere. So what I'm hearing from some people is, well, if I can't have it at my place, I'm not going to vote for it. Well, the point is, what we have to do is start somewhere. And like Sheriff Lamont said, the majority of it's right here. Work our way from there. I still hope everybody will support this resolution 100%. Thank you.
Supervisor Smith on the amendment?
No, it's on the motion.
Supervisor Barker on the amendment?
No, this is just a statement I want to make, and I've been waiting a long time, so let me make it.
Supervisor Keller on the amendment?
No.
No.
Supervisor Keel on the amendment?
No.
Supervisor Farray on the amendment?
No.
Supervisor Warnke on the amendment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think you're playing a dangerous game by taking this money out of reserves. You have to realize that these reserves are there for a reason, and there's several reasons for it. First of all, it helps our credit rating, and the second one is that the interest rates are low, and we're getting a very favorable interest rates if we bond for this thing. If one of the reasons for these reserves is that if we have a catastrophe, say a tornado or something like that, and we need a lot of money quick, this is what this money is there for. So there's several reasons that you need it. So I urge you to not vote for taking out of the reserves, because it's a dangerous game that we're playing. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rule?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will only say that prior to the meeting and when Executive Harris was up here, he said that he supported this. I know that the finance director supports this. I've known those two long enough that if they had any concerns whatsoever, they would not have supported it all evening. I urge everyone to support the amendment.
Supervisor Skellinger?
I will be supporting the amendment because I believe that we need this resolution passed, and lowering the requirement to two-thirds might be the path to that. So I'll be encouraging you to vote for the amendment.
Supervisor Keel?
I withdraw.
Okay, we'll vote on our little iPad.
Do you want me to leave?
Pardon?
You want me to step back permanently?
You may as well, yeah.
Okay.
We're voting on the amendment to take it out of the fund balance.
I think he was waiting for somebody to ask.
Vote aye if you approve to do that, no if you don't. What was the vote?
26 to 6, it passed, it was just a majority.
Okay. Now back to the original resolution. Supervisor Barker. To the original resolution as amended to take it out of the fund.
This was 23 years ago when I came on this board, we were talking about taking care of security here. And we've talked and we've talked and we've talked. And if anybody asked me exactly what we've done for security, I would say they nailed shut all of our drawers so that nobody can put guns in them and pull them out and shoot the judge.
Supervisor Smith? Okay, thank you.
Yes. They always say a journey starts with the first step. This first step started more than 20 years ago, and I think it's about time we move on. I urge all my fellow board members to vote in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Olson?
Thank you. I just have one other quick question. If this passes, and I assume it will, how long will it take before this Welcome Center is done? Are we talking a year, 2 years?
A year to 18 months.
A year to 18 months? Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make it very clear at the outset that I do strongly support the security measures that have been talked about. Security cameras, careful checking at the entrance, the whole ball of wax. So I don't want to be misunderstood on that. My problem is spending what amounts to $895,000 on a physical facility to handle just the entrance screening. I'm all for the cameras, I'm all for all the rest of the stuff. I'm for the screening. But I seriously doubt that we really have to spend $895,000 just for the little space it takes to run a magnetometer and perhaps a body search if necessary and that sort of thing. That's an awful lot of money per square foot. It's well over $1,000 per square foot if I remember the specs. I do wish that we could pass this, the security equipment part of this thing, everything, but then go back and take a look at the construction cost, because I'm sure it can be done much more modestly. I'm not at all convinced that it all has to be in new space. Now, I'm not an engineer and I don't know anything about that, but if I remember right, there was a little bit of an addition put on back there after the courthouse was built. It contains swinging doors and all that sort of thing. But goodness, $895,000 just for the space, it seems excessive to me. I wish we could pass the security stuff and ask them to go back to the drawing board on the construction. This is a terribly important thing to do. I will certainly have to vote for it, but I do wish we could find a less than $895,000 cost to house a couple of magnetometers and a couple of people who will be doing the screening. That is awfully excessive to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Farah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got quite a bit to say, so bear with me if you would. Let me start by thanking Supervisor Wengren for his heartfelt presentation presenting the need for security in this courthouse. If you look at the vote on the Facilities Committee meeting, I was one of two that voted against it. After that vote, a little over a week ago, this last Monday, I asked the clerk, and I thank her for helping me, put some material together to give this board, all the supervisors, some background for their knowledge and partially to justify my no vote. Probably the most important document going forward was the comments of Mr. Harris from the January 14th meeting. When he said that, I totally agreed with him. My primary concern is that we have offices, departments within this building, in my opinion, that the residents, certainly in the towns, primarily use, where they shouldn't have to be screened. An example, why should a person have to be screened to come in and pay their taxes? Why would a person have to be screened to get a marriage license? Why would a person have to go through screening to record a document, Register of Deeds? Since that, and Mr. Rowe, I see is requested to speak next. Him and I have had one of the big issues, and let me be frank about it, is we were supposed to start moving these departments out of this courthouse to make it basically a judicial center quite some time ago. That hasn't happened. I voted no because I strongly feel it's wrong to have people be screened to do what I just said. The other option is, well, we can start moving these departments over to the administration building, alleviating my concerns, making it easier for my constituents and yours to do their normal functions with government without going up through a process of being screened. I've been assured, well, we're going to look at that, or maybe it's going to happen. And I thought verbal assurances are one thing, but where is the resolution? Where is the effort to get this done? I am somewhat relieved that it'll take 2 years to build this facility, because that gives us time to maybe make these moves. I must tell you, truthfully, I don't have a problem with screening people coming into the courthouse that are going to the courts, that are here for issues regarding justice and the judicial system. But I seriously had a problem with people paying their taxes. So that's why I voted no. Now we have a parliamentary move here basically to take the 3/4 vote down to a majority vote. And I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on this. You know, I came in here thinking I probably would vote no. I look forward to the discussion of my peers on this county board. I'm somewhat convinced, and I look forward to Mr. Rowe, because I will say now, he's chairman of facilities. And are we going to address, and this, my vote will hinge on your answer, sir, moving these people from this courthouse to the administration buildings, and within that 2-year time frame? Thank you.
Thank you. I know I'm not supposed to comment from the bench here, but I just have a comment. At home, my wife said to me, "David, things have changed." Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we had a number of people from the gallery that spoke earlier this evening. Obviously, those people are concerned because most of them do their daily business in courtrooms such as this. Let's not forget the rest of the employees in this building. We should be concerned about their safety. Not the least of which are our friends, neighbors, and relatives that come to this building to do the transaction that they have to. We should be thinking of protecting their safety also. I have written a number of notes. I hope I get them in decent order. First of all, and this is should have been my first comment, those of you that have known me over the last 9 or 10 years know I'm not a spendthrift. I don't vote for a lot of high-ticket items because I'm rather conservative. I fully supported the previous resolution, and in addition, I support this $1.1 million resolution. That's out of character for me, but I think it's necessary. If I may ask the sheriff to answer a question that was raised, who else will be allowed to carry guns into the building if we add the security addition?
Currently, as it stands, the judges have the option to carry weapons in their courtroom. They have also worked it out with the district attorney that although the district attorney can come into the building with a firearm, there are not firearms allowed in all of the courtrooms, it's my understanding. But those would be the only individuals. They are required to receive specific training in order to do that.
Thank you. The next item I'd like to address is a supervisor asked the question about the $208,000 annual cost. On line 35, it spells out the $208,184. So we weren't trying to hide anything. We put it there in black and white. The same supervisor, I think, brought up the 15 to 18 or 16 to 18 million dollar proposal that the last consultant came in with. That was a 5-story building. Okay? That's why I've never talked to any of you that were in support of that. I then have to turn to this side of the room and explain a little bit, if I may, the 3-2 vote at facilities. I'm chairman of facilities, and yes, the vote was 3-2. I knew by the discussion that the vote would probably be 3-2. Because of comments that were made by Supervisor Fari and Chairman Albright, I thought that they would probably vote no. I know that there's always concern when we get to the board floor, who voted no and why did they vote no? Sitting there that day, knowing that it was going to show up as 3-2, and quite frankly, that wouldn't look very good, I made a statement, and they can all correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a politician. I don't play politics. If I wanted to play politics, I would have pulled the resolution because Chairman Albright was filling in for Supervisor Hamlin, who had resigned, and I knew who the next supervisor was that was going to be on the committee, and I knew that he would vote for it, and so the vote would have been 4-1. I said, I don't play games like that. That's why you see a 3-2 vote. That same supervisor that questioned the 3-2 vote last week raised a concern about his constituents having to come to the courthouse and pay their taxes. I wasn't aware of that, but took his word for it that that's what they have to do. That meeting was last week, Wednesday, March 11th, late morning. We normally get out of there about noon. Wednesday, March 11th at 2:26 p.m., realizing this was a concern of one of the supervisors, I sent an email to the county executive. I didn't know what his answer was going to be, but I said, Mark, I spoke to a supervisor who plans to vote against the addition because going through security would be an inconvenience for citizens to enter the courthouse and pay their taxes. What assurance can you give that the treasurer's office will be moved out of the courthouse within the next 2 years? Thank you, Bill Rowe. I very promptly got an answer. I never noticed this before, but it was 13 minutes later from the county exec to me, which said, and I quote, I have asked Mike Elder to lay out a timeline and cost estimates for the various projects necessary to consolidate courthouse functions in the courthouse and to move non-courthouse functions to the administrative building. We have already investigated some possibilities for expanded parking at the administrative building. It is my hope that this process will be underway this summer. I would like to be out of the public safety building by the end of this year. Though I have been disappointed in the past by the amount of time required and the delays that arise, I am very confident that we can have the treasurer out of the courthouse in less than 2 years. In a matter of about 3 hours, I thought I had the answer that the supervisor was concerned with. All I wrote down lastly was your vote is going to hinge on, and I didn't write down the rest, if I may ask you what it...
Sure, Mike. You guys turn me on. Thank you. My question, and perhaps I'm going a little too far, Mr. Roll, so stop me if you prefer. There was a discussion about perhaps our Facilities Committee should draft a resolution either requiring or urging the executive of this county to get these departments moved within the 2-year time frame that we're referencing. I believe that you said you would consider and support that. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, and if I may...
Now, that's why I said, I need you to say that publicly and be committed to it.
And if you'll turn around and watch the county supervisor, or the county executive, he will either shake his head yes or no, that prior to this meeting...
You want a spot.
Prior to this meeting, did I or did I not tell you that I would work with you and Mike Elder to do everything possible to make this happen? He's shaking his head yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe I have heard all the negatives. I think I have. There are 3 of them that I think have answered that were on the negative side of this. If I have not heard from all of them, I'd like to hear them, please.
Heard from who?
The people that voted against, that have voted against this, I think I have. But if there's anybody else that have not spoken, I'd like to hear from them.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concerns are a lot what Supervisor Farley has, so I'd like to hear from Mr. Elder and the county executive that the movement of these offices, of these uncourt-related offices, will be moved in 2 years. And then the second question is, what would happen if it doesn't happen in 2 years? What would happen, how logistically, how hard it would be if we have this security facility now, and now we decide to move them out? How, to me, that seems a logistical nightmare, but my 2 questions are, can it be done in those 2 years? And what if it doesn't get it done in 2 years? What are the logistics and how open is this courthouse going to be then?
Hey, Sheriff, can you answer some of that?
Well, I guess to answer your question would be that no matter how secure this building is, we're always going to have work that needs to be done in this building, and contractors are going to be going in and out. So it's going to have to be a cooperative effort between the Sheriff's Department and facilities and the contractors to be able to get the work done.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote for it, as you people know. But the question I have is, we're talking about moving people here, we're talking about moving people there. Why don't we use that Huber building? It's been sitting empty for long time. Anytime it's brought up, there's some sort of an excuse why we shouldn't, couldn't, or wouldn't. But I think we should start considering using that building for something, or just tear it down. But just leave it sit there is foolish. And, and I don't think it would cost us that much money to reconstruct a little bit to make it usable for whatever. But that's something we should consider, is that Huber building. What do you think, facilities?
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless only on-duty law enforcement officers are permitted to bring guns into the building, excluding all other, and unless employee egress is addressed, the welcoming center is simply a facade to security, just as the U.S. Marshals stated in their description of our building. Looking at the building, it's a professional building, but you can see it's not secure. If you put up a welcoming center, it will look secure, but unless no guns, unless on-duty law enforcement persons holding them, and unless we address the egress of employees not having 100-plus keys running around a courthouse that you're going to spend $1 million to secure, unless these issues are addressed, and they may well be addressed in the security manual, which was not discussed or presented to the board, or summarized to the board, or related to the committee. These are questions that are yet unanswered. I want to vote for a secure courthouse, but I'm not convinced that this resolution number 143 is going to do that without these other questions resolved.
Supervisor Rowe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an old Chinese proverb. It goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Thank you.
Supervisor Keel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The obsession with who has a firearm in this courthouse, for speaking for myself, is only that I disagree with Mr. Eisen, that the intent is to keep this secure from human behavior with firearms, knives, whatever else, but if a trained individual, whether it be an officer, a judge, a district attorney, I'll tell you for myself, I have no fear of what their conduct will be in this building. And I would hate to give a nightmare to those out there, but you would probably freak out if you got the special powers to know who's carrying a weapon or has bad intent around you in public every day of your life. So at the risk of giving someone nightmares, there's bad people out there. The intent of this is to prevent and leverage percentages of safety at the door for those who would have ill intent. So for myself, I will say I have no problem with a properly trained, sanctioned person carrying a firearm in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Farley?
Thank you, Mr.
I've been
Chairman.
very patient and let some of you talk too much, but this will be the end of the, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let me say in all sincerity, I have expressed my concerns. I believe that Mr. Rowe and the county executive have responded, and I trust that their will be done, that this will become primarily a justice center. Given that situation, and I said I could be persuaded, I am adamant about protecting the civil liberties of our residents. And that's why I raised these concerns. I believe that the comments of Mr. Rowe and the county executive and others have satisfied my concerns. So, given that, I will support the resolution before me. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take our little iPad. We'll vote aye if you approve. No if you disapprove. That is passed. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, April 21st.
We are adjourned.
Aye.